Hello and welcome to our channel. We're excited to have you with us today. We've got a thrilling story to share and we hope it delivers all the suspense you're looking for. Let's dive right in. Patrick Elliott sneezed as he shifted another box in his deceased father's storage unit. Dust rose into the dim light streaming through the windows. He stopped for a moment, wiping his forehead with a handkerchief, and his eyes landed on a decorative wooden box nestled in a shadowy corner. "What's this?" he muttered, reaching for it. His fingers traced the intricate carvings as he felt the weight of history in his hands. The latch clicked open surprisingly smoothly. Inside, a single document lay, carefully folded. Patrick frowned as he unfolded it, squinting at the words in the weak light. His eyes widened and then narrowed. What the hell? It was a will, his own will, with his signature clear as day at the bottom. The document stated that he had been dead for 3 months and left everything to his wife, Christine, and a man named Lorenzo Muller. Patrick's mind raced. How had his signature ended up there? Who was Lorenzo Muller, and what did Christine have to do with this? His stomach churned at the thought. With trembling hands, he took out his phone and snapped a careful picture of the forged will. He returned it to the box, positioning everything exactly as it had been before. As he locked up the storage unit, his heart pounded so loudly he was sure anyone walking by would hear. The drive home passed in a haze. Patrick's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as his thoughts spiraled wildly. When he pulled into the driveway of their suburban home, the perfectly trimmed lawn and cheerful flower beds now felt like a mockery. He found Christine in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. The harsh fluorescent lights reflected off the knife in her hand. She looked up, a smile on her face that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're home early," she said, her tone light and casual. Patrick's jaw tightened. He slid his phone across the counter, displaying the photo of the forged will. "Care to explain this, Christine?" Her eyes widened briefly before narrowing. She put down the knife, a smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. "It's easier if you don't resist, Patrick. You'll regret it if you do." "Who is Lorenzo Muller?" Patrick asked, his voice calm, though anger simmered beneath the surface. Christine's smirk deepened. "That's not your concern." "Not my concern? My name is on a fake will, leaving everything to you and a man I've never met. How is that not my concern?" Patrick's voice rose. Christine's demeanor hardened, her hostility now clear. "Drop it, Patrick. You have no idea what you're stepping into." "No, I don't," Patrick admitted coldly. "So why don't you enlighten me?" Christine's eyes glinted dangerously. "You want to play that game? Fine. How about I tell your department head about your affair with that graduate student last year?" Patrick froze. "What are you talking about?" "Don't pretend to be clueless," Christine snapped. "I have the emails, hotel receipts. It'd be a real shame if your spotless reputation were ruined. I wonder how long it would take before they fired you." Patrick's mind raced. There had been no affair, no graduate student, but he knew with growing dread how easily Christine could manufacture evidence, how she could twist harmless interactions into something incriminating. "You're bluffing," he said, though doubt had crept into his voice. Christine's smile was sharp. "Are you willing to risk your career on that?" And the full weight of her betrayal hit Patrick like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about money or a fake will. This was about power, about dismantling his entire life. "Why?" he whispered. Christine shrugged, picking up the knife again. "Because I can. Because you're dull, Patrick. Predictable. I want more, and Lorenzo can give me that." "You won't get away with this," Patrick said. Christine's laugh was cold and humorless. "I already have. This is your last warning, Patrick. Back off, or I'll destroy everything you've worked for." She stormed out of the kitchen, leaving Patrick alone with the weight of her threat hanging in the air. For a moment he stood there, stunned, then survival instincts kicked in. He knew he couldn't stay in this house, not with Christine, not with her holding so many unknown cards. Moving quietly but swiftly, Patrick went to their bedroom and packed a bag with essentials, clothes, toiletries, his passport. In his study, he gathered important documents, birth certificate, social security card, bank statements. He downloaded financial records and emails from their shared computer, copying them onto a flash drive. As he worked, he called his friend and lawyer, Theodore Mears, but the call went straight to voicemail. "Ted, it's Patrick. I need your help. It's urgent. Call me as soon as you get this," he said, keeping the message vague, aware Christine might check his phone records. Patrick paused in his study, a thought striking him. He set up a hidden camera, positioning it to capture most of the room. If Christine or this Lorenzo came snooping, he'd have evidence. He heard the shower start upstairs. Now was the time. Patrick slipped out of the house, tossing his bag into the trunk of his car. As he pulled out of the driveway, he caught a glimpse of Christine through the upstairs window, wrapped in a towel, her face twisted in fury. He drove without a clear destination, just the overwhelming urge to get as far away as possible from the life he once thought he knew. His mind raced with plans, questions, and the beginnings of a strategy to fight back. As the familiar streets of his neighborhood faded in the rearview mirror, Patrick felt a steely resolve settle over him. This wasn't the end, it was just the start of a battle he intended to win. Patrick pulled into a small, unremarkable motel on the edge of town. He paid for a week's stay in cash, using a fake name. The room was dim and smelled faintly of old cigarettes, but for now it would suffice. He sat on the bed's edge, head in his hands, trying to wrap his mind around the day's events. His phone buzzed with a message from Christine, "Where are you?" He ignored it and pulled out his laptop instead. He had to start figuring out what was going on. Who was Lorenzo Muller? How long had this been happening? Most importantly, how would he fight back? Patrick opened his email and scanned through months of communication. At first, nothing seemed out of place, but soon he noticed inconsistencies, small differences in their joint account, money being moved in ways he couldn't explain. His phone buzzed again, another message from Christine. "You're making a mistake, Patrick. Come home and we can talk about this," he scoffed, typing out a reply before deciding against it and deleting the draft. No, he wouldn't give her the satisfaction of a response, not yet. Instead, he called his department head, Dr. Saul Godfrey. "Patrick, is everything okay?" "It's pretty late," Saul answered, sounding groggy. "I'm sorry to bother you," Saul, Patrick replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I need to take a leave of absence, family emergency." There was a pause on the other end. "Of course, Patrick. Take as much time as you need. Is there anything I can do?" Patrick hesitated. Should he tell Saul about Christine's threats? No, not yet. He needed more information first. "No, thank you. I'll keep you updated." After hanging up, Patrick returned to his laptop. He opened a new document and began typing out everything he knew so far. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As dawn's first light seeped through the motel's windows, Patrick finally allowed himself to close his eyes, though sleep was elusive. His dreams were filled with dark figures and betrayal, with Christine's mocking laughter echoing in the background. He awoke with a start, briefly disoriented, but then the memories of the previous day crashed down on him, renewing his determination. After showering and changing, he headed out. He needed coffee and a plan. At a small diner, sipping a cup of bitter coffee, he listed his next steps. 1. Find out who Lorenzo Muller is. 2. Gather proof of the financial discrepancies. 3. Talk to Ted about legal options. 4. Protect his position at the university. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Ted returning his call. "Patrick, what's going on? Your message sounded urgent." Patrick exhaled deeply. "Ted, I need your help. It's Christine. She's trying to take everything from me. There's a fake will, and she's threatening my career. I don't know what to do." There was a long silence on the line. "Jesus, Patrick. Okay, where are you? We need to meet in person." Patrick hesitated. Could he trust Ted? He had known him for years, but then again he had thought he knew Christine too. "I'd rather not say where I am right now. Can we meet somewhere neutral? The coffee shop on 5th and Main." "Sure, Patrick, I'll be there in an hour." As Patrick waited for Ted, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time the door's bell jingled, he glanced up, half expecting to see Christine or Lorenzo walk in. Finally, Ted arrived, looking concerned. "Patrick, what on earth is going on?" Taking a deep breath, Patrick explained everything: the forged will, Christine's threats, and the mysterious Lorenzo Muller. Ted listened carefully, his frown deepening with each detail. "This is serious, Patrick," Ted said when Patrick finished. "We need to act fast. First, we'll file for an emergency injunction to freeze your joint accounts. Then, we'll start building a case." Patrick nodded, feeling the first glimmer of hope since discovering the will. "What about Christine's threats to my career?" Ted's expression darkened. "Empty threats. We'll deal with them if she actually follows through. For now, focus on collecting evidence. Document everything. And, Patrick, be careful. If Christine's capable of this, who knows what else she might do?" As they parted, Patrick was overwhelmed by a mix of emotions: fear, anger, and resolve. Above all, he felt a fierce determination. Christine and Lorenzo had underestimated him, and he wasn't about to go down without a fight. Patrick pulled into the lot of a shabby motel on the outskirts of town. The neon sign flickered weakly, half its letters burned out. He paid in cash for a week's stay under a fake name. The room smelled of cigarettes and despair, but it would do. He sat on the bed, his laptop balanced on his knees. It was time to dig deeper. Who exactly was Lorenzo Muller? A quick online search revealed more than Patrick expected. Lorenzo Muller was a charismatic real estate developer with good looks that probably made middle-aged women swoon. Patrick's jaw tightened as he scrolled through news articles and press releases. But something about Muller's success didn't add up: properties that appeared out of nowhere, deals that closed suspiciously fast. Patrick's archaeologist instincts kicked in, and he started digging deeper. After hours of poring over public records and newspaper clippings, a pattern emerged. Lorenzo had a type: wealthy, usually married women. He'd charm them, and soon enough he'd walk away with their money, leaving them broke and embarrassed. "Bastard," Patrick muttered. He pulled up his own bank records, and there it was: large transfers from their joint account to a company he didn't recognize. A quick search confirmed his suspicion. It was one of Lorenzo's shell companies. Patrick's hands shook with rage as he opened his email. He needed to know how deep this went. How long had Christine been betraying him? The answer made him sick: months of correspondence between Christine and Lorenzo, hidden in a secret folder. They had plotted in disgusting detail how to manipulate Patrick, how to drain his money, how to leave him with nothing. Patrick slammed the laptop shut, nausea rising in his throat. He had been blind to the betrayal happening right under his nose, but no more. He was going to fight back, and he would win. Reaching for his phone, he dialed Theodore Mears. "Ted, it's Patrick. We need to talk." Christine paced nervously in Lorenzo's modern downtown apartment. "I found something across town," she muttered. "He's gone," packed a bag, and disappeared. Lorenzo, reclining on the sleek leather couch, seemed unfazed. "Calm down, darling. Where's he going to go?" Christine shot him an irritated look. "You don't know Patrick. He's not as clueless as you think." Lorenzo's expression darkened. "Watch your mouth. Don't forget who pulled you out of that dull life." Christine swallowed her response, knowing she had made her choice, for better or worse. "We need to move faster before he figures out what's really happening." Lorenzo stood up, drawing her close. "Relax. I've dealt with guys like him before. By the time he catches on, it'll be too late." The next morning, Patrick met Ted at a quiet coffee shop. Ted listened with growing astonishment as Patrick detailed his findings. "Jesus, Patrick, this is bigger than I expected. We need to build a solid case." Patrick nodded, determined. "I'm not stopping until I take them both down. What's our next step?" Ted leaned in. "We need more allies, people who can vouch for you and protect your interests. Who can we trust?" Patrick thought for a moment. "Dr. Saul Godfrey, my department head. He's always supported me. And Trevor Joseph, a former student of mine. He's a private investigator now." Ted gave an approving nod. "Good. I'll get started on the legal case. You reach out to them, and Patrick, be careful. These people are dangerous." Patrick's first stop was the university. He found Dr. Godfrey in his office, surrounded by piles of papers and ancient relics. "Patrick, come in, come in. How's that family emergency?" Patrick shut the door behind him. "Saul, I need your help. It's worse than I thought." He explained the fake will, Christine's betrayal, and Lorenzo's scheme. Saul listened in stunned silence. "My God, Patrick, what can I do?" "I need you to protect my job here. Christine's threatening to destroy my career with false claims. I can't lose everything I've worked for." Saul's face hardened. "Not on my watch. You're one of our best, and I'll make sure the board knows it. Take as much time as you need." Relief washed over Patrick. "Thank you, Saul. I won't forget this." His next call was to Trevor Joseph. Trevor answered on the second ring. "Professor Elliot, this is a surprise." "Trevor, I've got a job for you. It's complicated and personal. Are you interested?" There was a brief pause. "For you, Professor. Absolutely. What do you need?" Patrick explained the situation. Trevor let out a low whistle. "That's a serious mess, Professor. But don't worry, I'm on it. I'll start digging into Lorenzo's background, see what I can find." With his team coming together, Patrick felt a renewed sense of hope. He wasn't fighting this battle alone. His final call was to his sister, Charlotte. She answered cheerfully but quickly grew concerned as Patrick explained the situation. "Oh, Pat, I'm so sorry. You can stay with me as long as you need." Patrick's voice wavered. "Thanks, Char. I don't know what I'd do without you." That evening, they gathered at Charlotte's house. Patrick, Ted, Saul, Trevor, and Charlotte. The dining room table was covered with papers, laptops open to various documents. Ted took charge. "All right, let's build this case. Trevor, what have you found on Lorenzo?" Trevor grinned. "Oh, you're going to like this. Lorenzo's got quite a history. I've uncovered at least 3 other instances of him charming rich women and stealing their money. He's good at covering his tracks, but not good enough." Patrick leaned in. "Can we use that in court?" Ted nodded. "Absolutely. It shows a pattern of behavior. What else?" Saul spoke next. "I've secured Patrick's position at the university. Any attempt to discredit him will be met with strong resistance." Charlotte squeezed Patrick's hand. "And you've got a safe place to stay for as long as you need." Patrick looked around at his allies, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you, all of you. I couldn't do this on my own." Ted cleared his throat. "Now we need to be smart about this. Patrick, you need to keep a low profile. Let us handle the work. The less Christine and Lorenzo know, the better." Patrick reluctantly agreed. He hated feeling powerless, but he knew Ted was right. As the meeting ended, Patrick pulled Trevor aside. "There's one more thing. I need you to keep an eye on Lorenzo's office. If you can plant a listening device, even better." Trevor raised an eyebrow. "That's pushing legal boundaries, Professor." Patrick's expression hardened. "I don't care. I need to know what they're planning." Trevor studied him for a moment before nodding. "All right, I'll see what I can do." Days passed, and Patrick threw himself into the investigation, poring over financial records and emails. He hardly slept, driven by his need for justice. Late one night, Trevor called. "Professor, I'm outside Lorenzo's office. The cleaning crew just left. If I'm going to plant that bug, it's now or never." Patrick's heart raced. "Do it, but be careful." He paced in Charlotte's guest room, waiting for Trevor's call. An hour passed, then 2. Just as he was about to call, his phone buzzed. "Trevor, what happened?" "Professor, you won't believe it. I almost got caught. Lorenzo and Christine showed up just as I was finishing." Patrick's blood ran cold. "Are you okay? Did they see you?" "No, I hid in a supply closet. But Professor, I overheard them. They're planning to have you committed. They're going to claim you're having a mental breakdown." Patrick's mind raced. This was worse than he had feared. "Did you plant the bug?" "Yeah, it's in place. But Professor, there's something else. In my rush to get out, I think I left something behind a pin with the university logo on it." Patrick cursed under his breath. "All right, get out of there. We'll deal with it in the morning." He hung up, his mind reeling. They were trying to have him committed. It was a smart move if they succeeded. Anything he said would be dismissed as delusional. He had to act fast, but as he reached for his laptop, a wave of exhaustion hit him. When was the last time he slept? He couldn't even remember. Patrick collapsed onto the bed, closing his eyes for just a moment, planning to rest for a few minutes before getting back to work. He jolted awake, sunlight pouring through the windows. His phone was buzzing relentlessly. "Hello," he answered, still groggy. "Patrick, it's Ted. We've got a situation. Christine's lawyers have filed for emergency guardianship. claiming you're mentally unstable. Patrick sat up, now fully alert. On what grounds? They're alleging you've been acting erratically and making wild accusations. They even have statements from your neighbors about you leaving suddenly in the middle of the night. Patrick's mind raced. That's when I left after confronting Christine. Damn it. Ted's tone was grim. This is serious, Patrick. If they win, you'll lose control over everything, your assets, your ability to make decisions, everything. What do we do? We fight back hard. I'm filing counter motions as we speak. You need to prove you're mentally sound, which means staying visible. Go to work, act normal. Don't give them any reason to build their case. Patrick nodded, even though Ted couldn't see. Got it. Thanks, Ted. He hung up, realizing Christine and Lorenzo had miscalculated. They expected him to run, hide, and lose control. Instead, he would face them head-on. As Patrick got dressed for work, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. He looked tired and worn, but the fire of determination in his eyes was unmistakable. He wouldn't let them win. Not now, not ever. Patrick Elliott sat in Dr. Saul Godfrey's office, his fingers tapping impatiently on the armrest. The plan was in motion, but everything depended on Lorenzo taking the bait. Are you sure this will work? Saul asked, concern etched on his face. Patrick clenched his jaw. It has to. We have no other options. The phone on Saul's desk rang, startling both of them. Saul answered, his eyes widening as he listened. It's for you, he said, handing the phone to Patrick. It's Lorenzo Muller. Patrick took a deep breath to steady himself. Mr. Muller, what a pleasant surprise. Lorenzo's voice was smooth. Dr. Elliott, I hope I'm not intruding. I have a business proposal I think you'll find quite interesting. Patrick's free hand tightened into a fist, though his voice stayed calm. I'm listening. I understand you've made a remarkable archaeological discovery. I'd love to discuss some development opportunities, perhaps over dinner. Patrick forced a laugh. Why wait? I'm free now if you are. The faculty lounge is private, and I'm sure discretion would be appreciated. There was a pause before Lorenzo responded. Certainly. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Patrick hung up and met Saul's worried gaze. It's happening. You know what to do. Saul nodded, picking up his phone to set the next steps in motion. 20 minutes later, Patrick sat in the faculty lounge, a concealed microphone taped to his chest. The door opened, and Lorenzo Muller strolled in, all charm and expensive tailoring. Dr. Elliott, a pleasure to meet you at last, Lorenzo said, shaking Patrick's hand firmly, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Patrick gestured to a chair. Please sit. I'm eager to hear more about these development opportunities. Lorenzo leaned in, lowering his voice. Let's cut to the chase, shall we? I know about the artifacts you've uncovered. They're undoubtedly priceless, but imagine the potential if that land were repurposed. Patrick raised an eyebrow. Repurposed. Luxury resorts, condos, a golf course, the possibilities are endless. Lorenzo's eyes gleamed with greed. Of course, such a project would require some creative solutions to a few regulations. Patrick casually adjusted his tie, making sure the microphone captured every word. Creative solutions. Lorenzo chuckled. Come now, Dr. Elliott. We both know that with the right amount of money, any obstacle can be smoothed over, permits fast-tracked, inspections cleared, artifacts moved. Patrick leaned back, his expression neutral. And what would my role be in this endeavor? Your expertise, of course, would be crucial, and in return your silence would be handsomely rewarded. Lorenzo pulled out a sheet of paper, sliding it across the table. I've taken the liberty of drafting some preliminary figures. Patrick glanced at the paper, eyebrows raising at the number of zeros. This is generous. Lorenzo's grin widened. Consider it a down payment. There's much more where that came from. Patrick stood, pacing the room. It's certainly an intriguing offer, but I have to ask, Mr. Muller, how can I trust you? I've heard some disturbing rumors about your business dealings. Lorenzo's smile faltered but quickly returned. Rumors, Dr. Elliott. just jealous competitors spreading lies. I assure you all my ventures are entirely legitimate." Patrick turned to face him. "So, if I were to dig into your past projects, I wouldn't find any irregularities? No defrauded investors? No mysteriously missing funds?" Lorenzo's face paled. "What are you suggesting?" Patrick's voice hardened. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you that I know exactly who you are and what you've done to those other women, to my wife, to me." Lorenzo shot to his feet, his charm evaporating. "You have no proof." Patrick smiled coldly. "Don't I? This whole conversation has been recorded. Your bribery attempt, your admission of plans to break the law, it's all there. And that's just the beginning." Lorenzo lunged forward, grabbing Patrick by the collar. "You son of a, I'll destroy you." The door burst open, and Ted Mears entered, followed by 2 police officers. "Lorenzo Muller, you're under arrest for attempted bribery, conspiracy to commit fraud, and a list of other charges we'll uncover." As the officers cuffed Lorenzo, Patrick straightened his shirt. "Oh, and Lorenzo, you might want to call your lawyer." "I have a feeling you're going to need it," Lorenzo snarled as he was led away in handcuffs. "This isn't over, Elliot." Patrick watched him go, a quiet sense of satisfaction settling in. 1 down, 1 to go. The next morning, Patrick stood at the police station, watching through a 2-way mirror as detectives questioned Christine. She sat rigidly, her face tight with indignation. "This is absurd," she snapped. "I know nothing about any forged wills or embezzlement." The detective calmly pushed a folder across the table. "Then maybe you can explain these emails between you and Mr. Muller or these bank transfers." Christine's composed facade cracked for a moment. "I want my lawyer." Patrick turned to Ted, who was standing beside him. "What now?" Ted's smile was cold. "Now we go for the kill. I've already filed for an emergency divorce and asset freeze. Dr. Godfrey is ready to make a statement to the university board, fully backing you, and Trevor's findings on Lorenzo's past crimes are damning." Patrick nodded, feeling a burden lift from his shoulders. "Let's finish this." The next few days were a blur. Patrick submitted the forged will and financial documents to the police, watching as the case against Christine and Lorenzo grew stronger by the hour. Trevor Joseph's investigation had uncovered a string of victims across several states, all with similar stories of manipulation and deceit. Dr. Godfrey addressed the university board with unwavering conviction. "Dr. Elliot is not only innocent of any wrongdoing, but he's also been the victim of a malicious conspiracy. This university stands firmly behind him." Christine and Lorenzo's legal teams grew increasingly desperate as the evidence piled up. Emails, bank transfers, and recorded conversations painted a clear picture of their deceit. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. Patrick straightened his tie, preparing to testify. Ted gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "You've got this, Patrick. Just tell the truth." Patrick nodded, stepping up to the witness stand. As he was sworn in, he glanced at Christine and Lorenzo. Both looked pale, defeated. "Dr. Elliot," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court how you discovered the forged will." Patrick took a deep breath and started recounting his story. He described finding the will in his father's storage unit, confronting Christine, enduring the threats and the manipulations. He detailed the investigation, the evidence they had gathered, and the trap they had set for Lorenzo. As he spoke, he could see the jury's expressions shift from skepticism to anger. Christine's lawyer tried to portray Patrick as unstable, but his calm and composed responses made it difficult. Dr. Elliot, the lawyer, sneered. "Isn't it true that you've been under a lot of stress lately and behaving erratically?" Patrick met his gaze steadily. "The only stress I've experienced has been caused by discovering my wife's betrayal and their attempt to steal everything I've worked for. My actions have been those of a man fighting to uncover the truth and protect himself." The lawyer faltered, unable to shake Patrick's poise. As the trial continued, the prosecution's case became overwhelming. The evidence was irrefutable, piece after piece showing Christine and Lorenzo's elaborate scheme. Then the moment came that sealed their fate. Seeing the inevitable, Lorenzo turned on Christine. "It was all her idea," he shouted, pointing at her. "She told me she was tired of her boring husband and wanted more excitement, more money. She's the one who forged the will." Christine's face twisted in fury. "You lying bastard. You're the one who seduced me and came up with the whole plan." The courtroom erupted as the two hurled accusations at each other. The judge banged his gavel repeatedly, calling for order. In the end, the jury's decision was swift. The verdict was unanimous guilty on all counts. The judge's tone was stern as he delivered the sentence. "Christine Elliott and Lorenzo Muller, your actions demonstrate a blatant disregard for the law and for basic human decency. You exploited trust and manipulated emotions for your own benefit. I hereby sentence you both to 15 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for 10 years. Patrick watched as Christine and Lorenzo were led away in handcuffs, their faces filled with shock and anger. He didn't feel joy, only a deep sense of relief that it was finally over. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered, clamoring for a statement. Patrick stepped up to the microphones with Ted and Dr. Godfrey flanking him. "Justice has been served today," Patrick said, his voice steady. "But this is not a victory to celebrate. It's a tragedy, a reminder that trust can be betrayed and that people aren't always who they appear to be. My hope is that others can learn from this, to be more cautious and aware." He paused, looking directly into the cameras. "To anyone who has been victimized, manipulated, or deceived, don't give up. Fight back. The truth will come out." As the reporters shouted their questions, Patrick turned away. He spotted his sister, Charlotte, standing at the edge of the crowd, giving him a small, proud smile. He walked down the courthouse steps, feeling lighter with each step. The path ahead would be tough, rebuilding his life, learning to trust again, but he had come out stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever was next. At the bottom of the steps, Patrick took a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. For the first time in months, he felt a glimmer of hope, not just for himself, but for anyone who had been harmed by Christine and Lorenzo. Their reign of lies was over. Patrick turned to Ted and Dr. Godfrey. "Thank you, both of you. I couldn't have done this without you." Ted clapped him on the back. "You did all the hard work, Patrick. We just had your back." Dr. Godfrey nodded. "The university is lucky to have you, Patrick. Take some time off. Your position will be waiting when you're ready." Patrick smiled genuinely. "Thanks, Saul, but I think what I need right now is to get back to work, to some sense of normalcy." As they left the courthouse, Patrick's phone buzzed. It was a text from Trevor. "Drinks to celebrate first rounds on me." Patrick chuckled and typed back a quick reply. "Sounds perfect. See you in an hour." He pocketed his phone and looked up at the sky. The sun was breaking through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the city. It felt like a sign, a promise of better days ahead. Patrick Elliott had faced betrayal, fought against overwhelming odds, and emerged victorious. He had reclaimed his life, exposed the truth, and ensured justice was done. The road ahead might be challenging, but Patrick knew he was ready. As he walked toward his car, he allowed himself a small, hopeful smile. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in months he was looking forward to it. This is where our story concludes. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Click on the video on your screen, and we'll see you in the next one.